Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishtaye Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamti Namane Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Bhajalini Nivasesha Sunyavadi Pushtatara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Let me just adjust a few things on the screen, move a few things, adjust a few things. Um, okay, now you can see, I presume you can see something that says perfecting trance. Okay,
Yeah.
so Samadhi, so it's a level of being absorbed in the holy name or absorbed in the glories of Krishna. We've been speaking about that. This is what we're aiming for ultimately. We want to be able to sit down and be completely absorbed in Krishna's holy name, and consequently Krishna's form, qualities, and pastimes, which are non-different from the holy name. So we've been speaking about that and different levels of absorption. And we started this last week, looking at, I'm still moving things, excuse me. Yeah. Some of the symptoms of someone who is at that stage, and it's a question that's asked by Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. He asked a question in the second chapter, actually, right in the beginning. So I'll just do a quick review because we've gone over this. So I just want to get context myself. So I just go over it quickly. So Arjuna asked, what's the symptoms of one whose consciousness who's merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? Yeah, so someone who's absorbed in Krishna, there will be specific symptoms that will manifest. And Krishna answers the question in answers the question in text. Let me just check. If you want to look yourselves, chapter 2, text 55 to 59 of chapter 2. And I just read this here. This is a summary of, this is those verses given in the summary here. One who has attained samadhi has given up all desire for sense gratification. His purified mind finds satisfaction in the self and is neither disturbed when subject to the threefold miseries, nor elated when showered with happiness. Okay. Unaffected by whatever good or evil may come his way, he neither despises nor praises it, but remains steady, free from attachment, fear, and anger. When in trance, the devotee withdraws all his senses from sense objects in a way that the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell. Some of you might recognize these verses as we're speaking through them. And although he has abandoned sense enjoyment, even if a slight taste, sense objects remains in him, he remains fixed in consciousness by experiencing a higher taste. Right? So this is the symptoms that Krishna explains to Arjuna. So we're going to look at these. We're going to look at these, go into a bit of detail, as we have done already. Its liberated status. These are the subjects which mentioned there. Realizations that come from it, and we're on this, I think, here. Freedom from identifying with the temporary body, freedom from karma, fearlessness, exclusive interest in Krishna's pastimes, and a qualification to see Krishna. Yeah. Spiritual perfection from which fall down these rare. So the first one we gave us, and I'm sure you might recognize this picture. Yeah, this is little Shiva, and when the after the Daksha Yagna, that wonderful, exciting part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Well, it's all exciting, but where Lord Shiva produced a great demon to destroy the yagna and also they beheaded Daksha and gave him a goat's head. Quite a dramatic. So but they was advised by Lord Brahma to go and appease Lord Shiva. So when they did, they went to Lord Shiva's abode, and he was deep, deep in trance. Yeah. Here, all the sages and demigods headed by Indra offered their respectful obeisance unto Lord Shiva with folded hands. Lord Shiva was dressed in saffron garments and absorbed in trance. Interesting, saffron garments. Absorbed in trance, thus appearing to be the foremost of all sages. So he probably wasn't even aware of them approaching. This was so we looked at that last week. Also, gave the example here of Prahlad Maharaj, that one absorbed in Krishna consciousness is superior to someone who's obtained Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma. Yeah, no sojate na kanchate. Well, actually, that's by getting on this stage of bhakti, one can reach the state of samadhi. Yeah. So let's just go here. This is, I think, where we left off here. No, we covered this as well. Let's go here. Okay.
Didn't we not see this as well?
You saw this one? The swan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go forward. Let's make some progress.
But it's okay to repeat it because.
Okay, well, let's get some idea where we left off. Okay. So this is still continuing on the subject of being free from the bodily concept of life. Now, what's it like? What is that experience to be actually free from the bodily concept of life? Now, it's not as if a devotee will be floating or in some divine type of ecstasy. For example, Prabhupada was obviously free from the bodily concept of life. Yeah. But it just, yeah, I'll read this here. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Payojataha Janat Asubhairakyam Gyanat Chatohitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So at this level, one is automatically endowed with deep realizations coming from their absorption in the holy name. Yeah. And because the realizations and the depth of their knowledge is coming automatically because they're so absorbed in Krishna. Yeah, so they're in touch with Krishna's samvit potency. You know, Hladini, samvit. You have the Haldini potency, the samvit, and the Sandini potency. So we have the existence potency, the potency of bliss, the bliss of Krishna consciousness, and the knowledge potency. So when a devotee is absorbed in this level of samadhi, then all the truths is known to them. In other words, they obtain Vigyan knowledge. Yeah, that's why Prabhupada, whenever he would speak, it would be from this platform of realization, never theoretical. I think Gaur Maharaj would say that a devotee doesn't speak theoretically. A realized devotee doesn't speak theoretically. We may have to speak theoretically, but a realized devotee will speak. They have realized not the body, and then when they speak, it's very powerful. Yeah. So this is and yeah, carrying on, it frees one from every aspect of bodily identification. But just as a drunken man does not notice if he is wearing a coat or shirt, similarly, one who is perfect in self realization and who has thus achieved his eternal identity does not notice whether the temporary body is sitting or standing. We covered this as well, I remember now. Indeed, if by God's will the body is finished, or if by God's will he obtains a new body, a self-realized soul does not notice, just as a drunken man does not notice the situation of his outward dress. Okay, now generally you're going to find that Prabhupada and Vaishnavas, generally the followers of Lord Chaitanya, they will internalize this realization. Otherwise, you have the examples of avadutas who do not relate to the world or anybody in the world. They're completely absorbed in their trance. So there won't be much spreading of Krishna consciousness if that was the case with everyone. And Prabhupada himself. So it means devotees are completely detached from the world, completely detached from the body. I mean, they realize these points here, but they internalize it for the sake of serving the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah. So that we described as well. Now let's go here. Yeah. Mm. Prabhupada says this is Krishna consciousness or Samadhi. Yeah. This is Krishna consciousness. So he's referring to this verse here. He says, this is Krishna consciousness or Samadhi. Among the 8 progressive stages of yoga, I am the final stage Samadhi, in which the soul is completely separated from illusion. Yeah. Now, yeah. So in other words, the material energy it's just one illusion upon another illusion. Yeah. And all these illusions, they're generally connected to the body. Yeah. So in other words, the body is like you could say it's like a vehicle for the illusory energy to fulfill its purposes. Yeah. And one of the purposes that we need to do is to sleep. Anyone have that problem? We have to sleep, isn't it? It amazes. I mean, every time, or not every day at some point, about 9 o'clock, I just cannot function. I get so tired that I have to sleep because that's my regulation. 9 o'clock. Between half past is the latest I might sleep unless there's a program. I can't imagine how the Goswamis would just go 1 hour sleep or 2 hours sleep. How to function. And Prabhupada himself. And does anyone know how long he would sleep?
Wasn't he also 2 hours?
2 hours.
2 hours, isn't it?
Mm.
Take a nap in a day, but 2 hours. Some of you might be able to do that. You've had experience of that.
No,
Anyone?
can't do that.
So, but such someone at this level, they can function. Yeah, Prabhupada would say sleep is death. And sometimes Prabhupada, you know, um, generally when we travel internationally, we need some time to recuperate, isn't it? If we travel to India or somewhere else, there's some time where you know, we have to get used to the difference in the time zone. So we might be tired during the middle of the day, etc. But Prabhupada, as famously we know, he would travel around the world and he would just lock straight into the Pacific time zone of the country that he landed in. There will be no there would be no schedule for him to rest up for a day or two before he starts preaching. you know, Most times for ourselves, I know when I go to Mayapur, I have to arrive at least a week before I start teaching, just to recover and get myself together. But Prabhupada, as soon as he gets straight from the plane, and in a plane there, when he gets into the airport, there'll be devotees to greet him and etc. They go to the temple, give a welcoming, give a introductory talk, and then get straight into his schedule. And one time he had, I forget their names, but there's a couple of sannyasis were with Prabhupada as his secretary. And so one time Prabhupada wondered where they were. They'd arrived, I think, in Fiji or something. And Hari Suri said that they were sleeping because they were quite tired after the journey. Prabhupada chastised them severely. Prabhupada, what is this? Sleep supposed to be sannyasis, and where are they? He made he spoke quite strongly. about their tendency to sleep. It's very difficult to keep up with Prabhupada. Very difficult, as devotees will tell you, Shrutakirti, Hari Suri, and others. So Prabhupada would very much, in a lot of ways, would function, would move, would function on this level, being completely aloof from the bodily concept of life. Um, Another example is Arjuna, known as Gaudakesha. Yeah, so Gaudaka means sleep. So Gauda Desha means master. So Gaudakesha, that's the name for Arjuna. He was so infused about his learning the military arts from Drona Acharya that he would practice at night time. He would practice shooting arrows according to the sounds he heard within the jungle, within the forest, sounds of animals. So he would practice. He was so enthusiastic that he used to practice at night. Wherever he, details are not given, it doesn't say anything otherwise, but whether that was every night, don't know. But he was very absorbed and ecstatic. And anyway, he wouldn't. He said that, Gaudakesha. Yeah. And even if a devotee does sleep, then because of the experience of Krishna that he or she has, then that feeling is carries in the heart, even one is sleeping. So one is always thinking of either directly or indirectly of Krishna, his name, form, qualities, and pastimes. And that was Prabhupada as well. Prabhupada, devotees asked Prabhupada if he was sleeping. Prabhupada said no. So Prabhupada was lying down, his eyes were closed. Prabhupada said no, I was thinking of Krishna. Right, so we can't imitate that, but this is one of the symptoms of someone at this level of samadhi. Yeah. So again, this level of samadhi is here. It's not as if it's just happening during the chanting of one's japa, during Shravanam, Kirtanam. But here, Prabhupada, as we gave the example of the gopis as well, they were absorbed 24 hours a day in a Krishna. So yeah, so being also in addition to being free from the bodily concept of life, because it's because of the bodily conception of life that we're attached. We may have enemies. It's all based on the bodily concept of life. If we become very proud, it's because we're identifying with the body. Yeah, but when someone's at this level of trance, there is no trace of that. There was no false ego. There was no attachment. There was no envy of anyone. Sounds attractive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get to that
Hare
stage.
Krishna. Yeah, so the idea of this presentation is trying to inspire us in our little practice of Krishna consciousness. When we pick up our beads, we can try, as I said before, we can really try to mine, really try to be absorbed in that holy name. Or if we're in kirtan, try to just be absorbed in the sound vibration. And yeah, because we want our consciousness to be transformed. This is what we want, isn't it? We want transformation. So here's some of the symptoms of what transformation actually looks like. What is the actual experience? So hopefully it's inspiring for us. So and continuing here. Now this is the final characteristic which we're covering is free from the influence of the modes of nature. Yeah. Um, so one question that's asked here, is such a devotee at the stage of samadhi, are they a transcendentalist? Well, it very much sounds like they are, but actually they're not. Okay, so Prabhupada was exhibiting the symptoms of someone at the stage of samadhi, yeah. But Prabhupada himself was a liberated soul at the stage of prema. So that will manifest as symptoms of samadhi as he's interacting and moving in the world. But say you got a sadhaka, they may advance themselves through practice, through these different stages of absorption in the holy name, and they may come to the level of samadhi. But doesn't necessarily mean that they are transcendental. They are a transcendentalist. Did you follow that?
Yes, or they're not at the prima stage.
Yeah, they're not a bhava.
Just on the path.
Yeah, they're not at a stage of bhava or a
Yes.
prema. But to get to the stage of bhava, you have to be your absorption in the holy name should be at this level of samadhi. Okay.
Yeah.
And then that's the next stage is bhava. So such devotees who have achieved that stage of samadhi, which is not, they're still conditioned souls, believe it or not, still conditioned souls. They still have to go some more steps. Now, but at the same
Yeah.
time, sorry, you said something.
Yeah, I was just thinking, so it interlinks from one stage to another, but to go to the next stage, you're still going through that other stage, the first stage. Does that make sense? Like, say, to come for some of them, like for like Prabhupada, they already
Yeah,
are at that stage.
yeah, high stage of bhava and puma.
Yes,
Yeah,
those who are at beginning of samadhi stage,
yeah,
they're still kind of advancing, but not at like sadhakas, not at bhav or prema stage.
yeah. They haven't achieved. This is what we're pointing out here. It doesn't. There's, that we've gone through these different levels of jhana, dharana, anushmriti, then samadhi. This is still not a liberated platform. It's only bhava. But so the point here that's made here is that no, they're not haven't achieved that stage, but they're
Mm.
not a victim at this stage of the modes of nature.
Mm.
Yeah. So in other words, as the devotee is advancing, um, they do become free from ignorance and passion. Yeah. Yep. Yet
I
still,
have a question.
yes, please, mother. Yeah.
Are we talking about like people sleep very little when they're advancing, or if they have advanced, they sleep very little, like 2 or 3 hours? But there are people in the material world, complete karmis, they
Yeah.
only sleep just 3 hours or maybe take cat naps for
Yeah.
afternoon. And they are not devotees and nowhere near sadhaka.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Margaret Thatcher. Anyone remember Margaret
Yeah,
Thatcher?
that's the one I thought. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, she was prime minister when I was a teenager. She would sleep, I heard, yeah, as we heard, 2 or 3 hours a night. She was so absorbed. Yeah, so you will find that. What to speak of an example of how much did Hiranyakashipu sleep when he was doing his austerities? So you will find that karmis or materialists will in order to meet in order to satisfy their material desires or to fulfill their passionate plans, they will go through great austerity and even seemingly and even go without sleep. All right. And you got the example of demons who do great austerities. Yeah. Ravan and Hiranyakashipu. So materially, like as we explained, these different levels of uh, jhana, dharana, anushmiti, samadhi, these are exhibited, or these are different levels of achievements, even for those practicing Astanga yoga. So they might not necessarily be bhaktas. This is why the point we're making here, there's still such persons, even if they achieve samadhi through an impersonal path, yeah, they are definitely not transcendentalists. You follow? But a devotee will reach these different levels of absorption by because they would reach different levels because of being absorbed in Krishna, his name, form, qualities, and pastimes. They would exhibit all such symptoms. that is described. Yeah. But that will come comes from their Krishna consciousness.
Does that happen to all the devotees? At one
Oh.
time, they would only be sleeping 3 hours or 4 hours.
Maybe yes, maybe not.
Hmm.
Yeah, it very much depends. There's a lot of different factors, you know. But generally, Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada would say, generally, Krishna consciousness is exhibited by less sleeping and less eating.
But you
But
know, when you sorry Prabhu for interrupting, when you like go in Harinam and you're chanting a lot, you notice that even when you're sleeping, you're still chanting.
yeah, for example,
So, I mean, I couldn't survive on less than 7 hours
yeah.
sleep.
So we should so like
But when I'm really absorbed or I've read a lot, I find that when I wake up, I realize that all that vibration is going on when I'm asleep.
yeah. I'm
So,
sure we've all experienced that. So we can get some idea of what it's like to not actually be in a mode of ignorance when we're sleeping, but to be awake. So you gave the example of kirtan. Yeah, when there's a kirtan, I experience that when I'm in kirtan for 4, 5, 6 hours. Then it's like you're sleeping, but you're not, you know. So and yeah, something else I was going to say. Yeah, and yeah, yeah, I just lost my mind now. But yeah, so yeah, there's that.
I also have a question when you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Yeah, there's something else I was going to say, but it just slipped my mind. That, yeah, speaking about sleeping and yeah, so we shouldn't imitate. We shouldn't imitate. We shouldn't try to imitate such a platform. You know, be very difficult. Yes, you had a question.
Yeah, I was thinking on the two words, meditation and seeing. So, it was like, we were at the retreat, we were doing the chanting with Vaisheshika Prabhu,
Okay.
how he does. And then,
Oh, he
like,
does. Yeah, he does. Like, yeah, go on.
first thing in the morning, yeah, we chant with him.
Meditative.
So, yeah. So I was thinking, like, chanting, like we dress Radha Krishna. So you, like, wipe their lotus feet and things like that. Their body, shoulders, this. So when you chanting, how we can kind of see their feet. Is that seeing or is that just imagining?
That's that's we can use our intelligence that's coming from us. It's not revelation
No.
coming from us. And so we can do that. For instance, you can take darshan of the deities, then you can close your eyes and you can recall what you saw when your eyes were open. You can practice that type of meditation. Yeah. So but that's different when that's different from the when the holy name is revealing Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. It's not based on your mental or subtle body faculties. It's manifesting from the internal via the internal potency of the Lord. Yeah, it's Krishna manifesting himself, his name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Yeah. So the symptoms of that will be a very deep ecstasy. Yeah, a very deep ecstasy followed often by torrents of tears, cold tears. Yeah. And feelings of, it's described the feelings of undeserving what is being revealed. Yeah. So even described that devotee, they become unable to chant in appreciation of what's manifesting in their hearts, and their chanting becomes choked up. They become choked up, and they may fall to the ground in prayer. They will find it difficult to chant even. It's like waves of ecstasy, how it's described. So that's different than us closing our eyes.
And just,
Thinking of Krishna's
I'm
lotus.
just thinking, are you just imagining things?
Yeah, but we
Or
should
are you
imagine it.
really see, because I tend to like take darshan, the Mangalarti
Yeah.
darshan before I start chanting. So you got image of Krishna in your head,
Yeah. And that's what we should do. That's what we should do. We should, because it's a sadhana. It's for us, it's a sadhana to think of Krishna, because we don't have such a spontaneous attraction. But we've been told to think of Krishna, and that's why we dress deities, and that's why we hear pastimes, so so that we can remember Krishna, and we should, and that should be our practice to try and remember Krishna. When we're on the train, we can close our eyes, or when we're chanting, you can try, as long as the holy name's very prominent, you can close your eyes and try to think of the form of Krishna that you took darshan of, and that's what we should be doing. So, but it's different from a revelation that's coming from the internal potency. But still it's very purifying, and you will feel the effects of that, even if it's using our own mind and intelligence to think of Krishna's fame, well, Krishna's form and qualities. And sometimes that may become quite ecstatic as well. Krishna may bless you with a level of some absorption in that. And you may feel freedom. And then you will feel, actually, to the degree that we're practiced to meditate upon Krishna, to that degree we're going to feel freedom from the influence of the modes of material nature. And that's what's described here. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to understand was like he was saying, sit down before you can't, make sure you sit down properly, upright, and
Yeah, that's Vaisheshika does that, I think.
Yeah, joints, this, that. And then
Any air in your hair? He
yeah, what's
likes
that?
air.
I couldn't understand that. Hair, I
Well,
mean,
air means if there's no air, people fall asleep. If it's a hot, stuffy room. So he's, especially if you're in a room with 200 people or 300 people, if there's no windows and no air, as soon as it comes time to japa, you're
right, that's what
you're sleeping. So, but carry on, you were saying, and I interrupted you.
That's it. I wanted to know what he meant by hair, like
Air.
yeah,
Air.
hair,
A-I-R.
no, H-A-I-R, hair.
Huh?
Yeah, he was saying like you just meditate on your sitting position, your joints, and like get all into.
Yeah, that's the presentation, people. That's the presentation we're giving our Western preaching. So he uses that. He may use that.
I was thinking, what's hair got to do with
hair? Can anyone help us here? Anyone can understand what Chandraval is saying? I can't understand. Hair?
I'm going to ask Mathura. I can't remember his second name.
I'm sure it's air, because he often likes and likes airflow in the room.
I think I think I heard air.
It's air, mother. It's not hair.
I was thinking, why did
what's hair got to do with it?
Yes, what's hair got to do with it?
No, it's air.
I think he said air, but he's got a bit of the American accent, so it may have sounded like hair.
So we want to be in a ventilated place, especially with a group of people. The tendency is to get stuff.
Not a hairy place.
Okay, so you misheard, mother.
Okay, right. I better not. He's going to think I'm stupid. Okay.
Yeah, so we can experience these things to some, when we're chanting. Hopefully, when we attend a class or pravachan, or like you went for the Rise retreat, and if you're really absorbed in it, you should be able to feel symptoms of transcendence, symptoms to some degree of what we're speaking about here. We should feeling something, some level of peace, some level of transcendence, some level of detachment, etc.
Yeah, I think that chanting sessions are really good too.
Yeah, we chant kirtan. That's the Yuga Dharma. So kirtan with many devotees chanting is very, very powerful. So in other words, you can reach these stages through the kirtan of the holy name of the Lord. So it's quite easy, relatively speaking, compared to these yogis who go to the Himalayas, and they haven't got anywhere to charge up their phone.
So association is really important.
As we know, association for those who, association of more advanced devotees is absolutely vital to inspire us, and for them also to have effect on us as well. Just by hearing them, being with them, it has sometimes it's maybe we may not even be fully aware of the purifying effect that it's having on us, but it definitely has an effect. But is okay?
Yeah, thanks.
So just continuing in this direction here. So free of the influence of the modes of material nature. So is a devotee at the stage of Samadhi? We describe that. Are they transcendentalists? No, but at the same time, they're not affected by the modes. Yeah. So generally, at least they're going to be at the mode of goodness. And yet, this mode of goodness will still, don't forget, it's a material quality. It's still there until bhava. Yeah. But also we hear that, I'll just read this section here, and yet we have a clear scriptural statement that the devotee's surrender to Krishna, one fully engaged in undeviating devotion, is above the modes. Brahma Buddha Pasanatma Nasojite Nakanchati. Yeah? So, for example, here's for the first quote. This is Uddhava. A worker who has taken shelter of me is understood to be transcendental to the modes of nature. Okay? And to Arjuna. This is Brahma Buddha. No, this is Mamchaya Vyapachayana Bhakti Yogana Sevati Sagunam Samitadyatam Brahma Bhuya Kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstance, at once transcends the modes of nature and comes to the level of Brahman. Yeah. So these verses, they give us an indication that a devotee who's fully immersed in devotional service or into the samadhi of devotion, they are transcendental to the modes, although they haven't obtained the level of bhava. They're transcendental to the modes, even if they've not attained the level of bhava. Yeah. So in other words, this someone who's could say, let's say, an accomplished devotee, sadhaka, someone who fully absorbs their senses in Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Yeah. So in other words, just read here again. By so doing, the Lord's transcendental qualities are objects of his gross and subtle senses. So he's using his gross and subtle senses to be absorbed in Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. So his body and mind they kind of transcend the modes of nature and even goodness. So in that sense, he's transcendental. Or you could say he's spiritualized. Okay? Now, however, when a devotee comes out of that, we, as Mother Lavanga gave the example, we may be absorbed in the kirtan, and you may have all felt the effects of that wonderful kirtan or association. So for some time, your mind, your subtle mind, your body's been completely absorbed in Krishna's name, quality, pastimes, whatever you're hearing. So at that time, one transcends the influence of the modes, even goodness. So in that sense, one is transcendental. Now, when the kirtan's over and you go back to work and have to go shopping the next day or pick up the grandkids, then that may not be the same. So you come out of that level of that trance, so to that quote unquote trance, and goes about our activities, for bodily maintenance, etc. Eating, yeah. So his senses at that point, his your senses are going to contact mundane sense objects and then take on their qualities. You follow? Yeah, then you take on, then your mind, your subtle body mind is taking on, is absorbing something other than Krishna's name, quality, etc. Yeah. So then you take on those qualities. Now, it should be said that someone who's advanced, then they're going to associate only with things in a mode of goodness. So then they adopt that mode. Yeah. So in that sense, the practicing devotee is conditioned to the mode of, conditions themselves to the mode of goodness. But when they're engaged in, when they're absorbed in the holy name, they're transcendental. But when one's not absorbed, one hopefully should be in the mode of goodness. Actually, because if you're not in the mode of goodness, it's going to be difficult to be absorbed. Yeah. That's why the lifestyle of a devotee is one of the mode of goodness. Does that make sense? So in other words, while a devotee is engaged in deeply absorbed mind and body in Krishna's name, fame, quality, and pastimes, one to that degree, one is transcendental. One from one aspect of transcendence. But when he's not so engaged, then he's functioning in the mode of goodness. Yeah. Any other questions on that from our esteemed devotees present? It's quite technical, but it's interesting to go over, to think about these things when we're going about, moving about in the world. I mean, I feel it. I mean, I'm sure we all feel it. We feel the difference. It's when we're being absorbed in class or absorbed in. I mean, Adi Guru mentioned it the other day. He gave class on Sunday, and he mentions that they go to Hammersmith Park or somewhere, and they chant for 6 hours. They do kirtan, and he says he can explain the symptoms of transcendence, how he feels. There's no worries anymore. Everything seems all the anxieties go, everything goes, and you feel so peaceful. You feel, But then again, when you come back and you start interacting with the stuff and the things in this world, you may not have that same type of experience. But at least we're beyond the mode of goodness. Now, Prabhupada's different. Prabhupada is not coming from down and going up to Samadhi. He's in prema. So even if Prabhupada is not hearing and chanting, he's always absorbed in Krishna. So he's completely transcendental. There is no mode of, but he's transcendental, but that transcendence will manifest, that Suddha Sattva will manifest as Prabhupada humanly in a mode of goodness. But he's above the mode of goodness. You follow that?
You know what makes a big difference for me is reading. If I read properly, like if I go to the library, I go to the library now because I can focus.
Oh yeah. It's got a nice atmosphere for reading, isn't it? There's a mystical potency about libraries.
Yeah, British Library is great. The reading rooms.
Yeah.
They're really good for reading. And then my whole consciousness is completely different. And then if I don't read, I find I'm really dull. Like my intelligence, my consciousness is like really dull. But when I do read, it's like a light switch going on. It's so amazing, the difference.
Nice. You go to the British Library. I've always thought of going there before to read and study. I heard there's few devotees do that. But yeah, so there's a nice example Mother Lavanga's giving. Practically her experience when you're reading and absorbing, being absorbed in. It's good to be in a nice atmosphere as well. A good atmosphere that will help us to be absorbed. Then as you can experience it. Yeah. I mean, I experience it also when I'm in the Holy Dham, because everything's spiritual about the Holy Dham. Everything is so inspiring for me. Even the empty fields is inspiring because it's all in the Holy Dham. everything is so inspiring. But when I come back, I know at some point I'm going to get covered again. Because you have to see non-devotees, You have to, you're interacting with the lower modes here, you know. Like when I first came, so speaking about myself, but when I first came back this time from Mayapur, I got picked up from the airport and I was shocked. I was in shock to see people drinking alcohol, standing outside in a mass, all drinking alcohol. I was shocked to see no one, shocked to see no devotees, shocked to see everyone doing sinful activities. But now I'm not shocked. I'm kind of covered. It's just like where we are. It's just it's a sinful place. But when I first came back, it kind of took me aback. Wow, everyone here is not a devotee. Wow, there's people who are not devotees. Because in Mayapur, everyone's a devotees except the Muslims, but even they're devotees. Sorry, Mother Chandravali is going to say something.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. So we really, for our spiritual life, we have to be really conscious of who we associate with, and because association is very important to be
Yeah,
with devotees who are in mode of goodness, and
yeah.
otherwise
Doesn't
you're talking rubbish, and then you bring your own consciousness down.
Yeah, so we have to, we have to use our intelligence of how we go about our devotional life. And sometimes we might find ourselves speaking rubbish, because we're not liberated souls. So we have to also be good association for ourselves. We have to be real as well. We have to be, shouldn't be real as such. It doesn't mean you don't, like your neighbors were there yesterday for the It doesn't mean you don't speak to your neighbors.
No,
It doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that. It means you give association as well. You should give association, but you shouldn't take on the values and principles of the non-devotees, those who are not devoted to the Lord. We have to interact in this world. But we should know that that's why it's important to have a sadhana that we do every day, because I know for a fact, okay, today I dressed Gauni tie, I went to the morning program, I went to Srimad Bhagavatam class. But I know for me to stay in Krishna consciousness, I've got to do the same thing again tomorrow. I've got to chant my rounds. I've got to, engage in associate with devotees. I've got to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So you at home, should have your own sadhana that you do at home. Early in the morning is good. Otherwise, yeah, to help us to keep our consciousness in a pristine state, at least a mode of goodness. So it's quite a lot of work to be Krishna conscious. We have to work at it. And sometimes we find ourselves, we will be inspired, and other times we might find it difficult. We might find ourselves swimming under the modes and it seems difficult and things are getting on top of us. But then we might do some extra chanting, we might do some praying, We spend more time with devotees, Up and down we may experience. But we want to come to the stage where we're always feeling in a mode of goodness. Anybody else? Any questions and comments about this?
It's easy to be in the mode of goodness when you're in association, isn't it, really? Because sometimes, like you say, out of association, you kind of like your mind starts veering towards the other side.
Yeah, it does. I mean, for me, as a brahmachari, I just function in the temple. I don't function outside. But for others like yourselves, you've got to function with family, you've got work, some of you, and things like that. So obviously it may be a little bit more difficult. That's why it's important for you to have a good, just like brahmacharis, have a good practice of sadhana, But yeah.
But the funny thing is, like when you do associate with non-devotees, you're craving to get back into the association again. You're craving to kind of like have your own space with Krishna. So, which is, you kind of like get that when you are, in the Mayavadi kind of when you're with non-devotees, you kind of crave that. Well, when can I get back to
Yeah.
my own
Must be
little
like that.
abode
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I can be with Krishna, and you're chanting and association actually more than anything, because you
Yeah.
forget everything else. It's like, the retreat, the few days, or even when you go away to the dhams, you kind of forget about the outside world completely. Like time, you don't really care about anything. All you care about is just your time with devotees and with being with Krishna.
Yeah, so it's good you can see the stark difference and you feel the need to associate with devotees.
Yes.
Things that Ramananda, in questioning Ramananda Roy, Lord Chaitanya said something along the lines, what's the most difficult situation or something like that? And he said not to have the association of devotees. So sometimes, it may be like that. But yeah, we should be hankering again for devotee association, you know. Yeah. Anybody else? Any comments or questions? We're speaking practical now. We're coming down to earth a bit. We're speaking about very lofty attainments here of Krishna consciousness. But it's good to be a bit real from where we are looking up at this level. But the encouraging thing is that we have, as we're concluding, we have experienced some of these levels of transcendence in our little practice of devotional service. Right, let's have a little look. Well, there's a few slides left. But there's still more. Okay. So freedom from karma and fearlessness. This is a well-known verse here in 11th canto. Bhayam tu dina basata shat isat pasyo vibhayoshmritihi. Yeah, fear arises when the living entity misidentifies himself as a material body. Why? Because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. So being absorbed, their mind and subtle bodies absorbed in the external energy of the Lord. So we become full of insecurity and fear. Yeah. Now, for someone who's constantly engaged in thinking of Krishna, generally bad habits, anarthas, and even results of past karma, they become washed away for someone who's really absorbed in Krishna. Yeah. Not only does he's free of karma, but all the impressions and effects of karma, he does not even remember them. Yeah. Okay. No, but there are some anarthas described that are more pervasive, and so there's karma that comes from past pious or sinful acts. Now, if someone's just absorbed in Krishna, chanting his holy name, one can be free of that. But the more pervasive anarthas, they come from the results of offenses to the holy name. Yeah. So it can be a problem because the means of success is the quality of our bhajan. Yeah. So those activities, if we make offenses to the holy name, then that's counterproductive to us making advancement. So in other words, when one is making offenses, that's when there's going to be kind of resilient reactions are going to be hard to dissipate. Yeah. Now, with our remembrance, if one is absorbed in Krishna, then these offenses become purified. And at the stage we've been describing of smarandas, remember we've gone through these different stages, they're all cleansed from the heart. Yeah. Now, by the time a devotee reaches samadhi, so them effects of offenses, they're very minimal in one's bhajan at the level of. I mean, they're still there, but they're very minimal. You follow? So that's freedom from karma. So freedom from fearlessness. So this is something that the yogis have to acquire when they go to remote places, like a jungle or a cave in a mountain, because yogis are quite tasty snacks for lions. they're quite tasty little snacks for lions, or maybe there's all types of things. I mean, snakes and animals. And Radhanath Maharaj describes quite dramatically how he, when he was meditating in the mountains in the Himalayas, was associating with one yogi, and he taught him how to be free of fear of snakes and poison animals and things like that. And he describes that how you should not exhibit even subtly any fear of an approaching snake. Then a snake will not feel that and then feel threatened and then bite you. So you have to just relax and let the snake crawl over you. So quite an achievement. So, but that's what they do. That's what one of the what yogis have to do. So they're so absorbed in meditation that they're unaware of external circumstance. So for a devotee, they put their faith in Krishna. Yeah. So because they have faith in Krishna, they have nothing to fear. Anyone know an example of that? One devotee was absorbed in chanting, and he wasn't fearful of a snake, but those who were coming to take his darshan, they were fearful of the snake. So they, Haridas Thakur, yeah. Even it said you could smell the venom in this cave, but Haridas Thakur didn't give it a second thought. He thought, this is a nice, quiet cave, no disturbance. There's a snake here, so that means no one's going to come and disturb me. So he sat there chanting the holy name. Yeah, because he's completely free of fear, because he's given himself to Krishna. Now, if Krishna wants the snake to bite me, okay, I may live, I may die. That's fearless. So that's quite a test, isn't it?
Yeah, we also.
Yeah, sorry, I saw this little video of this man who's expert in snake psychology. Apparently, there's no guessing what birth he's going to take in the next birth. But he had this hypothesis that snakes, that if the snakes don't feel threatened, then they won't bite you. So what he did as an experiment, he had this whole compartment built, this like box built, and there was hundreds of snakes were put in there, the most poisonous snakes on planet Earth, hundreds of them. And he had a chair in the middle of it, and he just sat in the chair in the middle of these hundreds of poisonous snakes, just sat there casually, completely free of fear. Of course, that was material, it was like a yogi. Of course, no snakes bit him, But point here, a devotee is not like a yogi. He puts his faith in Krishna. So that's why, we should put our faith in Krishna. If we're flying in a plane, okay, if Krishna wants a plane to go down, okay, what can we do? Hare Krishna. It's up to him whether we live or die. So in that way, the devotees are fearless. Sorry, Mother Chandravali, I cut you off.
That's okay. I was just thinking about this karma and fearlessness. When you think, oh, it's my karma, yes, I have to go through that and whatever. But when you start thinking, okay, karma is there, but add to it that Krishna is there to protect you. So then you become fearlessness, fear.
That's it. That's exactly what I was speaking about.
Worry about it. And then you don't think about the karma as well, because you know the karma is there, but Krishna is only going to give you a bit, but Krishna is also going to protect you anyway.
Yeah.
So then both things go.
Yeah. So already at our stage, through our faith, we are practicing these principles. Yeah, we are practicing these principles. Now, this comes automatically, naturally and automatically at the stage of samadhi. But we are practicing these principles, knowing and hearing that Krishna is the protector of his devotees. Therefore, to that degree, we can be free of fear. Now, that that is an automatic aspect of one's nature at the higher level of absorption in Krishna. But we can, even at our stage, we practice that. But generally we practice that through intelligence. We use our intelligence. Yeah, Krishna is the supreme controller. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He's going to protect me. So we intellectualize it. But the stage of really stage of advancement, that's just their that's their default.
Yeah, it was really like why I felt that was at the weekend. It was really coming back. I had the ticket for the coach, but I thought that I'll come back with Nishikant. But he had other plans anyway. And how Krishna just ran. So for a bit I was thinking, okay, how am I going? And then it was so nice that these devotees walked out, and the journey back was like in a beautiful car driven by really nice devotee, really nice associate.
I see Krishna arranged everything for you. No need to be fearful that you're going to have to hitchhike back home.
And I thought Krishna will protect you. And that the whole association was different. So if I'd come by the coach and, or if I'd come in Nishikant's car, the kids are there, you'd be talking kids. And this was this devotee association on the lectures that we'd heard. So Krishna, I just, all this realization that Krishna gives you, it deepens your faith in Krishna, your feelings for Krishna, and it's just things, it's different. He does look after you. I said that to Nishikant the next day. Don't worry, you don't have to look after me. Krishna will always look after me.
Yeah, this is really good realization. You don't have to. Krishna's going to look. Krishna's got my back. I think we heard that recently. We were speaking.
Yeah, Krishna's really
saying.
It was Anupma. He drove me back so nicely. She was really coming back with her.
Right, I'm going to take liberties here. It's 7:03. I'm going to go one more slide, okay? Hopefully we'll survive. Don't be fearful. Maybe all right, so back to Markandeya Rishi. Because let me just so what we mentioned at this stage is the marginal characteristics of samadhi. There's the tatastha, there's the surup, the root characteristics, and then come from that is the marginal characteristics. So what we just described is the marginal. Yeah. The principle, the surup lakshana of samadhi, is that one is disinterested in anything apart from thoughts of Krishna, his pastimes, chanting, etc. One has no other interest. Yeah, and so the example is given of Markandeya Rishi. He was again another example of Markandeya. Remember that other example we gave where Lord Shiva came to take darshan? He wasn't aware that he arrived. This is another wonderful example of Markandeya Rishi. I think it's because he was so deeply absorbed in serious samadhi meditation. I think it's this slide. Here. Let me just read the slide here. Oh no, this is it's the same thing. It's a different. No, there's another. Let me get this right. Sorry. There is another pastime of Markandeya Rishi where Indra becomes concerned that he's going to take his position. So he sends all these heavenly damsels and spring and the whole thing to distract him. Of course, it doesn't distract him. He doesn't even notice they're there. I think at some point he opens his eyes and he burns Cupid to ashes, or perhaps I'm getting some stories mixed up here. But anyway, back to the point here. Markandeya is an example devotee who's so absorbed, he's not even aware of what's going on around him. Yeah. So the same way an advanced devotee is obsessed with Krishna, and it becomes obvious in his dealings that he's always speaking about Krishna, whether asked to or not. Just like Prabhupada was always speaking about Krishna. Yeah. Maybe a preacher is willing to take any risk, again, like Prabhupada, to give others the holy name. Yeah. Yeah, just read this part here. Absorption in Krishna is spontaneous and effortless. Therefore, sometimes such a devotee becomes distracted from his preaching. Yeah. His household or her household affairs or work, and returns to thoughts of the Lord's pastimes, which is his default mode. So sometimes they may be overcome with deep thoughts of Krishna. Yeah. Now, okay, let me read the last notes here. A devotee whose attachment to Krishna has just matured will be new to the current of devotion sweeping his heart downstream towards cascading waterfall of ecstasy. Okay, sounds nice, isn't it? He's there, Krishna consciousness has matured. So this is a new miraculous experience they're having. Now, as a novice in managing external symptoms of devotion, he may sometimes startle observers with his behavior, giving them the impression that he is a daydreamer or even mentally disturbed. So that's how they may come across, you know. Ignorant people will be apologetic. Offenders will call him a sahaja. Yeah, some of you might be called a sahajiya. But all learned Vaishnavas will know that he has fallen into the celestial river of trance, relishing the sweet nectar of attachment to Krishna's pastimes. Okay. Hari Om, that's it. Hare Krishna, everyone. So let's pause there, yeah? So thank you for your kind attention. I wish you a happy japa tomorrow in our endeavors to be absorbed in Krishna's name. May we be completely absorbed and have revelation of Krishna in the full sense of the term. All right. So thank you again. Any last comments before we sign out? Going once.
Great Murli Manohar Prabhu ki jai. Last
Ooh,
call.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
There's your thought for today. Adi. Okay.
Samadhi.
So next
Thank
we'll be
you.
on, next Wednesday and then next Thursday back to normal, hopefully.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry,
Hare
Babu.
Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Ram.
Ram,
Hare
Ram,
Hare.
Ram.